Haunted soldiers exposed to sinister experimental optics discover terrifying secrets in the dark. Jack Thompson stared at the flickering fluorescent lights in the community center as if they were strobing warnings. The air was thick with dread, almost palpable, sinking into his chest like a stone. His fellow veterans shuffled in their seats, faces pale under the buzzing lights. Whispers filled the room, eerily echoing off the stained walls, each word coiling like smoke, curling around Jack's thoughts. What had he signed up for? This experimental optics program promised clarity, healing, but something felt fundamentally wrong. The once comforting images of camaraderie felt like phantom wounds. Outside, the cicadas hummed a steady dread, a chorus of impending doom throbbing in harmony with his heartbeat. He could swear he saw shadows dancing outside, their movements out of sync with the world around him. The neighbors, once polite faces waving from porches, began to morph in his mind, twisted smiles, eyes sharp with hostility that caused chill bumps to race down his arms. This is just nerves, he told himself, but deep down, the instinct screamed to run, to escape this suffocating community he had once loved. The veterans' weekly meetings had become darker, not just in mood but in nature. Each recollection triggered something vile and inescapable. Their experiences abroad felt intertwined with the whispers of the local folklore, curses slumbering under the very foundations of their homes. Tonight, as he shared his experience of combat, his words morphed into shapes of terror. He glanced at the others. They were staring wide-eyed at the darkened corner of the room, as if they could see the shadows whispering back, "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Turning back, Jack noticed a chilling mural bled into existence in the farthest corner, colors swirling in a dance of violence and despair. Ghostly figures trapped in a cycle of anguish, eyes pleading for freedom. They could almost speak, their silent screams resonating within him. A horrible thought crept in as each face told stories of betrayal, sadness, and haunting echoes of a time long past. With each pulse of sound, the soft scuffle of shoes or whispered confessions, he felt eyes upon him, a million unseen glances pulling at his sanity. The growing sense of unease compounded as shadows flickered, flicking at the edges of his vision. A prickling realization gripped him hard: someone in their circle was orchestrating this descent into madness. He glanced sideways at Jake, a fellow vet whose laughter masked his own darkness but tonight seemed withdrawn. Could it be him? Was this the work of an enemy long gone, or a darker force entwined in the town's very history? With the night deepening, paranoia grew. Fear clawed at each heartbeat. Jack urged his fellows to confront the series of disappearing neighbors linked to the program, but with every piece of truth they unearthed, the darkness grew thicker. It was no longer just a war they were fighting, it was a spectral war against the monsters of their past, taking root in a town that felt increasingly alien. Jack took a deep breath, a cold sweat forming, as he considered the prying shadows surrounding them. The question echoed cruelly in his mind: could they unravel the truth before it swallowed them whole, or were they already trapped in a living nightmare that lurked behind the smiles of loved ones? As Jack stepped toward the light of the exit, he couldn't ignore that lurking dread. What if the real battle had just begun? Jack stumbled through the dim hallway, seeking the comfort of clear light, but the humming overhead felt more oppressive than ever. Each calculated footfall echoed against the walls, a rhythmic reminder of his heartbeat. Darkness seemed to pulsate, alive, filling the void between the flickering bulbs with a sinister energy. He held his breath, listening to the soft whispers of the other veterans sharing fears, doubts, and nightmares, all of them trapped within a storm he felt rising. Looks like the mural is bleeding. Jake's voice broke through the tension. Jack shot a glance back, his stomach knotting. Jake was peering towards the corner, his face drained, eyes wide. Jack turned again, compelled by a force he couldn't understand. The mural was fraying and warped, the vivid colors now running like blood from an open wound. Stop! Jack shouted, panic surging. We need to get out of here. But the words echoed off the walls and slipped away, leaving only an uneasy silence. He felt the weight of 100 eyes on him, thick and suffocating, judging, dragging him down, and he realized how easily this could become their collective fate. Just look at it. Jake's finger pointed, tremors running through him. They want to show us something they need us to see. The other veterans gathered around, swallowing their fear for curiosity. Jack felt a cold sweat prickle at his neck as he stepped closer. The faces in the mural twisted and morphed, shifting under the duress of an unseen command. They were reaching, hands stretched, mouths forming silent screams. Jack ached to look away, but he couldn't. It felt as if they were pleading for help or warning him. What if they're right? Grant whispered, recalling tales they'd once shared about curses that claimed those who stepped too close. They could be trapped in there. Then we need to break the curse. Jack urged, desperation pouring into his voice. This wasn't just about monsters from their pasts, it was about the future being devoured by lingering darkness. But skepticism rimmed their faces, shadows clouding their judgment. How could they conquer a fate they hardly believed existed? Didn't you mention the disappearances, Jack? Jake's own fear was ripe, mixing freely with the dark thoughts feeding off the silence. What if we are next? A chill swept through Jack. Each half-formed shadow warped by doubt pressed closer. The very air around him became oppressive, clawing at his throat, constricting until panic surged. They had to act, or risk becoming one with the mural, lost, forgotten, and consumed. Tomorrow, Jack said, voice raw, we confront the council. We demand answers. Unease rustled through the group, but something in the spark of determination held them together. They huddled closer, aware of the swirling darkness brushing against their backs. Suddenly, the lights flickered, surged, and then split into darkness. Shrouded screams erupted, whirling like a tornado of fear. Jack felt a hand grip his wrist, firm and frigid. He spun around to find Jake's terror-stricken face, eyes gleaming with an unnatural sheen. Jack! The light sputtered back to life, but something had changed. The mural behind them was now alive, the dark colors oozing down like thick, inky shadows. Run! Jack screamed, tearing himself from Jake's grasp as echoes of screams blended with the desperate laughter of spirits long gone. They fled into the night, but the darkness snapped at their heels, a relentless predator. As they poured out into the parking lot, gasping for air, Jack shot a glance back. The mural was gone, replaced by a smooth wall, as if it had never existed. The chilling question surged in his mind: what other horrors waited for them, masked by familiar faces? And the deeper dread arose: was it really over, or just beginning? Tomorrow loomed closer, promises of dark revelations and previously hidden fears ready to be unearthed. Would they be ready? Jack's heart raced as he sprinted away from the building, desperation fueling each step. The parking lot lights flickered above, casting jittery shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. He looked around at his fellow veterans, their expressions fraught with fear and disbelief. The escape felt surreal, like a fever dream that refused to dissipate. What the hell just happened? Jake's voice broke the unnatural silence, quivering like a taut string ready to snap. His eyes darted towards the now blank wall, incredulity mixing with dread. Did we really see it? Grant muttered, his brows knitted tight. That wasn't real, right? Jack tightened his grip on his keys, the metal digging into his palm. It was real enough. We need to get out of here. I don't want to find out what comes next. Panic spiraled as the remaining twilight deepened, the air thick with the scent of decay. They climbed into their cars, the engines growling to life, tremors of anxiety coursing through the group. Where to? Jake asked, scanning the horizon as if expecting monstrous shadows to lurk between the trees. Jack turned the key in the ignition. I don't know, just drive away. Just anywhere but here. As they pulled away, the tension in the car rose. The darkness seemed to smother them, pressing in from every side, squeezing breath from their lungs. Jack glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the mural reappear behind them, but only asphalt and fading lights remained. "Did you experience anything weird?" Grant's voice wavered, breaking the silence that had grown thick. Jack hesitated. Was it just his imagination, or had he felt something when he looked at the mural? A flicker of memories, lost but achingly familiar, clawed at him, igniting a sense of urgency. Weird? Like I don't know. Like it called to me, like it wanted us. It wanted us? Jake shot back, incredulous, a nervous laugh escaping him. I don't know what kind of twisted things you've seen, but that was a ride of horror right there. So what now? Grant pressed. We confront the council. But what do we even tell them? That we saw some trapped souls bleeding out of a wall. If they listen, Jack said, feeling the weight of memories threaten to crush him. They can't ignore the disappearances. We can't be the next victims. The road ahead twisted ominously, illuminated only by the dull glow of the headlights. They drove in silence, each man locked in his own cage of fears, haunted by visions of the unholy artwork. With every passing minute, the shadows closed in, crawling along the edges of the road like restless spirits. Suddenly, Jake slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the pavement. What the hell? Jack shouted, nearly thrown forward. Up ahead, the air shimmered, warping like heat waves. Shadows twisted and morphed, rising from the ground, beckoning them closer. Jack's heart lurched. Was this another test of their will? A malevolent echo of what they fled from moments ago? Drive. Go. Jack yelled, panic lacing his voice. But as he glanced at the gnashing shadows pouring from the road, a dreadful realization dawned upon him. They weren't merely fleeing a haunting, the horrors were hunting them down. With a force of will, he thrust the car into reverse, eyes locked on the spectral figures. Get back. The air grew heavy, almost tangible, swirling like a tempest. Whispers licked at Jack's ears, unsettling and familiar. He could almost hear his name within the chaos, a chilling echo of long-buried secrets begging to be unearthed. Jack! Jake shouted, fear-stricken. What is happening? I don't know. The shadows surged forward, racing against them, thirsty for flesh. Would they ever escape? Or would they merely run deeper into the very nightmare they fled? Something primal twisted in Jack's stomach, a gripping knowing that tomorrow held more than answers. It beckoned with dread. Before dawn, they would be forced to confront their own dark reflections. And deep within the vile grasp of the night, a thought settled in Jack's mind. What if the truth they sought was also the very thing that would consume them? The headlights flickered ominously as Jack tore down the road, the shadows clawing hungrily at the car's bumper. The air felt electric, charged with a tension that prickled their skin, making every nerve scream to escape. It was as if the darkness itself was coming alive, pushing back against their very existence. Faster! Jake cried, his voice cracking under the pressure. We can't let it get us. Jack's foot pressed down harder on the gas pedal, the car rocketing forward into the unknown. Every glance in the rearview mirror filled him with dread. The shadows lurked with malevolent glee, shifting and morphing as if seeking an opportunity to snatch them back into their nightmarish embrace. What if we hit something? Grant shouted, panic seeping through his voice. We'll crash. Better a crash than that. Jack shot back, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. He could almost feel those restless spirits circling, whispering close enough for him to make out fragmented words. Come back, see us, help us. Were they lost souls? Were they victims of the mural's horrific secrets? Jack couldn't shake the feeling that whatever haunted them had roots sinking deep into his past. As Jack navigated around a sharp turn, a sudden burst of light illuminated the road ahead. A flickering neon sign danced atop a dilapidated diner, its promise of refuge crumbling just as fast as its facade. It was an oasis in the chaotic night, but was it a trap? Should we stop? Jake asked, fear mingling with the faint glimmer of hope. Are you insane? Grant retorted, looking at Jack, his eyes wide with terror. That place could be worse than what we just escaped. We need to regroup, figure this out before we end up as their next meal, Jack replied, weighing their options. His gut twisted violently. The unknown could swallow them whole, but the weight of the world they fled was even heavier. Jack swung the wheel, sending them careening into the gravel lot. They came to a halt just outside the dimly lit diner. Thick mist swirled around them, clinging to the asphalt like unwelcome memories. The three men exited the car cautiously, the sound of gravel crunching beneath their boots breaking the eerie silence. They looked around, squinting into the fog that clung to the diner's broken neon sign. Something wasn't right. Ivy snaked its way up the building, casting sinister patterns against the glass, while an unsettling stillness enveloped it, like a predator waiting in the brush. What if someone's in there? Jake whispered, eyes darting toward the entrance. The door creaked open without a touch, revealing darkness that seemed to pulse with life. I don't plan on sticking around to find out, Grant muttered, taking a step back, but Jack hesitated. Maybe we need to go in. We can't keep running in circles. The whispers started again, softer now but unmistakable. Help us please. Jack's breath caught in his throat. Was he truly hearing voices? Could the diner hold the keys to their escape, or was it just another layer of the trap? Let's just he began, but something caught his eye. A flicker of movement inside the diner. A figure slumped over a table, shrouded in shadows. Jake's voice trembled. What if it's just a trick? Jack took a deep breath, his heart pounding like a war drum. We need to know. We can't escape this until we figure out what's happening. He stepped forward, the door squeaking ominously as he pushed it open, revealing a pit of darkness that swallowed the scattered remnants of hope. They stepped inside the diner, and the door slammed shut behind them, sealing their fate under the weight of their horror. In the pitch black, they could only hear each other's frantic breathing and the low hum of something ancient and malevolent stirring in the shadows. As Jack's eyes adjusted, he realized whatever was waiting for them inside was far worse than anything they had faced outside, and then the lights flickered on. There, on the walls, were paintings of the same mural. They weren't just art. They were a grotesque history echoing their past, and in that moment, Jack realized they weren't just facing a nightmare, they were living it. Can they unravel the secrets tied to the diner, or will they become another story in the mural? The diner was a bleached relic of better times, fixed in an unsettling stillness. Those vibrant murals, a swirling chaos of color and pain, seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Each brushstroke felt like a grasping hand, pulling them closer into the chilling memory it documented. Jack's heart hammered furiously in his chest as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Why is this familiar? He whispered to himself, bewildered. Jake's breath hitched beside him. We need to get out of here. His voice trailed off as they scanned the diner's interior. There were remnants of old tables and mismatched chairs, but the real horror lay within the paintings. They told a twisted story, one that tasted of ashes and death. Look, Grant said, pointing a trembling finger at a mural, depicting three figures standing at the edge of despair. Their outlines were vague but familiar. Jack felt a sickening jolt as he recognized their own faces. The figures were branded in agony, dark shadows looming behind them, feeding on their despair. Is that us? He breathed, skin prickling as the realization washed over him. They know us, Jake stammered, his eyes wide with terror. Maybe they want to tell us something. Or maybe it's a warning, Grant interjected, fear cracking through his voice. We shouldn't have come here. As if in response, a low moan echoed through the diner, chilling the air and raising goosebumps on their arms. It felt alive, like the very walls were breathing, whispering their secrets back to them. Jack could feel the urge to flee clawing at him, but his feet remained rooted to the ground. Waves of dread washed over him. He was locked in a front row seat to a nightmare. Let's check the back, he finally said, voice steadier than he felt. Maybe there's an exit or something that explains this. Together, they moved cautiously, shifting toward a flickering light that cracked through a door at the back of the diner. Each step felt heavy, the atmosphere thickening like fog, suffocating and electric. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of pleading, a symphony of lost and tormented souls. "Help us find peace," they cried, the sound crawling into their ears, almost tangible. Jack reached for the doorknob, every instinct screaming at him to turn around, to run. But he couldn't. He had to know. "On three," he said, gathered the boys closer. 1, 2. Before he could utter three, the door swung open violently, revealing a cramped backroom cluttered with remnants of old restaurant tools and dust-coated chairs. But there, in the center, lay a tattered book, its cover slick with moisture. A light flickered from above, casting an eerie glow on it. "Jack! Don't touch it!" Grant shouted, but it was too late. Jack reached for the book, the moment igniting an electric shock of energy through his fingers. Snap! The diner's lights went out, plunging them back into darkness. Panic gripped their hearts like a vice. They stumbled back, every breath tasting of fear, and then came the laughter, dark and hollow, echoing around them, wrapping them in dread. "Fools," it taunted, a voice layered with malice. "You're just beginning to comprehend." Jack's hand trembled as he instinctively turned back towards the door. But it was no longer where it had been. A jagged wall replaced the way out, sealing them within the belly of the beast. "What's happening?" Jake shrieked, eyes wide with hysteria. Visions of the mural flashed in Jack's mind, each one a reminder of the suffering that awaited them. They were caught in a nightmare that refused to release its grip. And then came the whispers again, clearer now, with chilling resolve. "Help us become one with the darkness." The diner pulsed with a heartbeat of its own, and Jack's blood ran cold. What price would they pay to unravel this horror, and was there even a way out? The walls shuddered around them, and Jack realized this wasn't just a trap but a gateway. What horrors lay on the other side, waiting to be unleashed? The air thickened, suffocating, pregnant with a terror that felt palpable. Jack's breath clouded in front of him, each exhale a reminder of their fleeting existence. The shadows in the diner flickered, prancing along the walls like dark specters caught in a trance, whispering secrets only a few could understand. Grant gripped Jack's arm tightly, his face a canvas of sheer panic. "We need to find a way out." His voice trembled under the weight of that laughter still echoing in their ears, haunting and relentless. "We can't," Jack managed to stammer, his eyes darting around. The murals glimmered in the dark, intensifying the agony they depicted. They had become observers, trapped between worlds, feeling the pull of the darkness. Jack's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a desperate prisoner seeking escape. "Look!" Jake shouted, his voice fracturing, pointing at a mural nearest them. The colors shimmered as if alive, grotesque figures writhing against a backdrop of suffocating despair. "It's changing." Every brushstroke seemed to writhe and ripple, and from deep within the layers of paint, the faces of the figures blurred, revealing anguished expressions twisted in torment. Jack felt the weight of their terror settle over him like a shroud, as if they were reaching out for help, but for help from them, or for help to drag them under. "Are we really seeing this?" Grant's voice broke through the fog of fear. "Or is it all in our heads?" "It's real." Jack spat back, adrenaline coursing. "It's all too real." Just then, a crack split the silence, a jagged sound that echoed through the room. They turned sharply, the source coming from the tattered book that lay open on the floor. Pages rustled as if stirred by an unseen wind, the text shifting and expanding before their very eyes, revealing horrid, arcane symbols mixed with familiar faces, them, transformed into grotesque caricatures of suffering. "Stop! Don't let it take you!" Grant screamed, his voice slicing through the emerging chaos as if he could cut the tether between them and the darkness. But it was too late. The whispers escalated, a cacophony of despair saturating the air. "Join us, become one," the din of voices intertwined, wrapping around each boy like thick vines, pulling them toward the book, drawing their fears from the depths of their souls. Jack stumbled backward, fighting against the mounting panic. We can't let them win. We need to focus. As if to contradict him, the lights flickered again, and the whole diner quaked. A door materialized from the jagged wall, its aged frame glowing with an unnatural light. The irony burned. It was a way out, but it also beckoned danger. Should we go? Jake's eyes widened, teetering on the edge of uncertainty. What if it's a trap? It's a chance. Jack yelled, the urgency clawing at his throat. Or it's worse. Grant fired back, the horror in his voice choking any hope. Just follow me. Jack urged, adrenaline surging as he made his way toward the shimmering exit, a flicker of rebellion pushing him on. The whispers melded into a roar, a throaty growl that filled the chasm of despair surrounding them. Fools! The voice pulsed with a malicious glee, wrapping around them tighter as they approached. You think you can escape? Jack stepped through the threshold, the moment he crossed feeling like shattering glass, a bright flash of white light engulfing him. Heat swelled from the core of some unholy realm, pulling him forward. But what lay beyond the door? Would they find freedom or an even deeper descent into madness? As the light dimmed, all sound fell silent. Jack's heart dropped at what awaited them, and dread slipped into the cracks of his mind. Each moment felt like a decision hanging in the balance, a choice between life and some unknown doom. Are we ready for whatever's next? Jake whispered, the trembling in his voice reverberating with uncertainty. Jack looked around at the faces of his friends, each one a reflection of his own fear. They had entered a nightmare, but could they confront the horrors if they stepped further into the unknown? The next chamber beckoned, a darkness alive with dread. What waited there? More than answers, or worse. Jack squinted into the darkness, his heart thudding in rhythm with the deafening silence that encompassed them. Shadows shifted, pulsating with a life of their own, dragging tendrils of darkness across the uneven floor. Each step felt heavier, anchored by the oppressive weight of dread that settled on their shoulders. Can you even see? Jake asked, voice barely above a whisper, fear tinging his words. Not much, Jack replied, squinting harder. But I think it's getting closer. A sudden chill swept through the air, wrapping around their bodies like an icy fog. Jack felt it crawl up his spine, causing goosebumps to erupt on his skin. Something was here, lurking, waiting, and it wasn't just in their heads. Wait, Grant said, halting mid-step, his eyes widening. Do you hear that? A low hum began to resonate in the chamber, twisting into a melody that slithered into their minds. It was sweet yet discordant, a lullaby stitched together with despair, filling the void with a haunting allure. Jack's stomach churned. We need to keep moving. But the sound wrapped around them, pulling at their emotions, tugging at their doubts. Do you think? Jake's voice cracked. What if it wants us to listen? No. Jack nearly shouted, adrenaline spiking. He couldn't let fear devour them. They had to push through. We have to break free from this. Together, they forged ahead, ignoring the whispers mixed within the hum, snatches of words that felt sticky and suffocating. Images flashed past Jack's mind, faces, places, pain. Each one clung to him like a shroud. He shook his head violently. Focus. Suddenly, the hum escalated to a cacophony, drowning out their thoughts. Jack's heart raced. Run. He didn't have to say it twice. The three surged forward, tearing through the darkness as their lungs burned. But the floor shifted beneath their feet, plunging them into a dizzying whirlpool of shadows. The walls caved in, twisting like a carnival funhouse where reality lost its grip. Each corner turn felt like stepping deeper into a void, where sanity was the first casualty. Jack. Grant's voice echoed, strained. What if we're going in circles? No way. Jack shouted back, desperation fueling his pace. We can't be. Just there has to be something. And then, amid the chaos, a flicker of light up ahead. Was it hope or a beacon of nightmare? It flickered rapidly, blinding, pulsating like a dying star. They dashed toward it, fear tangling at their heels. Once they reached the source, the light exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors, revealing the incorporeal shapes of faces entwined in agony, wailing as if the light pulled them in. Jack's breath caught in his throat, horrified at the images swirling all around them. "Let us go back." Jake whimpered, eyes wide with terror, but a sudden force pushed them forward, an invisible hand urging them closer to the heart of the unfolding horror. "I can't. I can't." Jack gasped, struggling against the magnetic pull. But it was too late. The light enveloped them, and they were swallowed whole, the world twisted and flipped, sending their bodies reeling. An overwhelming scream echoed within their minds, voices crying out, begging for release. Jack's vision blurred, and all sensation crumbled into a dark abyss. With a crash, everything stopped. Silence. Jack shook his head, trying to clear the disorientation. As he blinked into focus, the diner returned but looked different this time, warped, covered in more shadows, and echoes of laughter from the dark curled around them like smog. "Is this really where we just were?" Grant murmured, his voice trembling. "It can't be," Jack breathed, glancing at Jake. Each friend's expression reflected his own confusion and despair as they stood on shaky legs. Then from the shadows, a figure emerged slowly, its features blurred and indistinct, like a dark painting that refused to take shape. Jack's heart dropped, fear surged. "What do you want from us?" A smile spread across the figure's face, sharp and cruel. "Your souls, of course." Suddenly, realization crashed like a tidal wave. This was only the beginning. An unholy game was unfolding, and they were the players. "Run!" Jack shouted again as dread gripped tightly. But where? There was nowhere left to go. As they fled into the deepening shadows, the whispers grew louder, almost mocking. Each step felt like a countdown. What darkness awaited them this time? "Jack, I don't think we can escape." Jake's voice wavered, panic rising. "Then we'll have to find a way through it." Jack shouted, determination exploding forth even as fear clawed at his insides. But as they bolted deeper into the horror, Jack feared his own resolve was slipping. What if the darkness didn't just want their souls? What if it hungered for their very sanity? "Is there a way back?" Grant whispered, dread pouring from him. Jack's gut twisted. "I don't know, but we can't just give up." A blood-curdling laugh echoed throughout the chamber, and Jack knew this time, they weren't just running from monsters. They were on the precipice of a madness that sought to claim them, body and soul. What if that was the wrong turn? Grant wheezed, fear twisting his features. Maybe Jack felt the weight of every whisper behind him, every twisted desire reaching out and trying to ensnare them. They moved in desperation, and Jack couldn't shake the thought. What if the shadows already knew their paths? What was lurking deeper in the dark? What awaited them further along this nightmarish trail? The shadows stretched like claws, reaching hungrily after them as they surged forward, desperation fueling their every move. Jack could feel a warm trickle of sweat sliding down his back, the tightness in his chest constricting with each frantic breath. He could almost hear the shadows whispering his name, a soft hiss that suggested they knew him intimately. "Keep moving!" he shouted over his shoulder, trying to push down the growing terror that threatened to paralyze him. Grant stumbled beside him, hands trembling. "Jack, what if?" Grant started, but Jack cut him off. "No time for what ifs. We can't stop. We can't let it catch us." Jack's voice rang with urgency, though deep down he felt a growing unease about their path. Each shadow they raced past seemed to watch hungry, curious, waiting for the inevitable collapse. Suddenly, the floor beneath them pulsated, vibrating violently as a deep rumble echoed through the diner, sending shards of glass from empty booths skittering across the tiles like desperate cries for help. Jack's heart raced as he realized they were no longer just running aimlessly. The diner was shifting, twisting like some monstrous organism, reshaping itself to entrap them. "Where's Jake?" Grant shouted, panic edging into his voice. Jack turned to find his friend, only to see him swallowed by the surging darkness, a scream caught in his throat that never had the chance to escape. "Jake!" Jack shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the shadows as if they were absorbing every sound around them. Jack lunged back into the suffocating darkness, outstretched hands grasping for something solid to hold on to. "Jake! Stop!" Grant pulled Jack back just as a visage emerged from the dark, a grotesque distortion of Jake's face, a twisted reflection of terror. The sight made Jack's stomach churn. The creature, if that's what it was, mimicked Jake's worst fears, pulling memories and doubts from the depths of his mind, and painted them across its contorted form. Jack stumbled back, breath hitching. "That's not him. That's not real." "Then what is?" Grant shouted, engulfed in despair. The shadows drew closer, pulling at them like gravity, insistently weaving through their thoughts and history, knitting deeper ties of dread. "No. We have to find the exit." Jack sputtered, grasping at reason with shaking hands as panic surged. With his heart hammering, he turned to run again, eyes scanning for any hint of clarity. But as they rushed toward what appeared to be an exit, a snare of fog enveloped the path, swirling thickly, blocking everything that might resemble a way out. The air thickened, stinging his lungs, and a weight settled around them, heavier than any water. "Grant, help me!" Jack gasped, struggling against the suffocating mist impeding their breaths. For a moment, they clung together, battling the invisible enemy while dread twisted between them, a silent war fought in shared fear and determination. "Jack," Grant choked out, I can't breathe." "Just hold on." Jack gritted his teeth, the pulse in his temples thundering like a war drum. He could hear the whispers again, clawing at the edges of his sanity, filling his mind with murky thoughts. "You cannot escape. This place belongs to you. In your head, it's always been yours." Echoed the mockery of his thoughts, and Jack felt instinctively that these weren't mere shadows, they were former parts of himself: guilt, anger, loneliness. "No. I want to let you in," Jack shouted, channeling every ounce of defiance he had left. He turned back to where the light had flickered, finding a dim point through the fog, urging him forward. With every ounce of will, Jack shoved past Grant and lunged toward the light, adrenaline blazing in his veins. Each step was met with resistance, the oppressive darkness shrieking, "Come back," but he pressed on, heart racing wildly with hope and fear. In a heartbeat, Jack barreled through the veil, crashing into a wider expanse, an abyss of swirling darkness illuminated by flashes of color. Fragments of memories bled into the air like visions pulled from a storm, piecing together the horror that surrounded them. What he saw made his heart freeze. Men and women trapped in anguish, their faces twisted in perpetual torment, seemed to emerge from the walls. They reached out to him, mouths forming silent screams as they were consumed by the very darkness that veiled their existence. "Jack! What did you do?" Grant's voice trembled behind him, wide-eyed fear etched across his features. But Jack couldn't respond. His mind was racing, piecing together what lay before them. It's showing us the truth," Jack murmured, dread coiling tighter within him. If this realm was a reflection of their innermost fears, what would it show them next? The figures shifted closer, the air vibrating with an eerie hum, and Jack felt the painful urge to turn away from the truth. But that was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Jake!" he yelled, fighting against the chaotic rush of despair that began to envelop him. "We'll find you." But the figures in the darkness twisted their features into mocking grins. "You can't save what's already lost," they taunted, voices melding into a devastating symphony, melding perfectly with the shadows. Jack steeled himself, but panic clawed at his throat as he faced the nightmare head-on. What if there was no way out? What if the only truth remaining was that they had been ensnared, destined to become part of this grotesque display? As the dim light pulsed with eerie rhythm, Jack felt the shadows shift once more, and the figures began to close in. He couldn't allow it to take them. Not now. But as they stumbled further into the unknown, Jack felt the air still. A new darkness emerged, thicker and more oppressive, and dread sank in. What was waiting in this new realm where whispers threatened to drown them? In the depths of the looming darkness, would they finally learn the horrific answers they feared the most? The oppressive atmosphere thickened, each breath becoming more labored, as Jack and Grant stood rooted in fear. The whispers swirled around them, amplifying their deepest insecurities. Shadows twisted and moved like dancers, pulsing with an almost animalistic hunger. Jack could feel the weight of the void pressing against his chest, dragging him down, suffocating any shred of hope. "Jack, we need to get out of here. Now." Grant's voice cracked, a note of panic slicing through the chilling laughter emanating from the shadowy figures. But Jack's mind raced a mile a minute. If this was a reflection of their fears, then that meant Jake was somewhere in this twisted realm or worse, already one of the nightmarish forms surrounding them. "We have to fight it," Jack said, forcing conviction into his voice. "Whatever it is, we can't let it win." As if taunted by Jack's resolve, the shadows around them flickered. The faces of the tormented souls morphed into horrifying shapes, some reminiscent of lost friends, others foreign and grotesque. Each step seemed to reveal more of their tortured reality, the walls pulsating with the heartbeat of countless griefs. "Look," Jack said, jerking his chin toward a shimmering light in the distance, its glow a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. "That might be the way out." Grant's eyes searched Jack's face for reassurance. "What if it's a trap?" "There's only one way to find out," Jack replied, lungs burning as they dashed toward the light, determination blocking out the trembling fear inside them. The whispers escalated into a crescendo of manic laughter, drowning out their footsteps. The shadows lunged, tendrils whipping out as if possessed, attempting to grasp their ankles, dragging them into the abyss. With every step, the two friends could feel the icy claws of despair snatch at their heels. "Keep moving. Don't look back," Jack shouted, though his own heart raced with trepidation. He could feel the tug of the darkness, a siren's call that beckoned him to surrender. He fought against it, locking eyes with Grant, who was equally haunted. The light drew nearer, pulsating like a heart, promising refuge. But the moment they neared it, a shriek erupted from the shadows, a bone-chilling cry filled with anguish. It split the air, sending a shiver through both of them. Jack stumbled, glancing over his shoulder. The shadows were shifting, morphing into a wall of nightmares, closing off their escape. "Jack! We're not going to make it." Grant's voice edged on hysteria, and Jack felt the suffocation of despair tightening like a noose. "No. We have to," but he was cut off as a shadow slammed into him, knocking him to the ground. The world tipped sideways, the ground collapsing beneath him. Jack thrashed against the darkness wrapping around him like thick vines, pulling him into their embrace. "Jack!" Grant's frantic scream echoed as he reached, desperate to pull Jack back from the grasp of shadows. "Let me go. You have to escape." Jack shouted, but his words seemed futile against the oppressive darkness. The grasping shadows began to pull him deeper, whispering promises of truths he was unprepared to face. A figure emerged in the distance, seemingly human but wreathed in shadow. It spoke a dreadful truth, its voice a haunting melody. "You are not just here to witness, you are here to remember." "Remember what?" Jack shouted, but the figure just smiled, a knowing glint in its eyes, revealing nothing yet communicating everything. The shadows twisted tighter, urging Jack toward the abyss. "You are bound by your past. Join us." In a final act of desperation, Jack screamed, "I'll never join you. I refuse to give in." As he fought, he heard Grant's terrified breaths nearby, still reaching for him. But all at once, Jack felt a searing pain sear through his mind, the memories flooding back in vivid clarity, a floodgate of guilt, betrayal, and fear. "Jack!" Grant roared, pulling against the shadows that threatened to consume them both, but as the darkness seemed to unify, focusing its energy on Jack's defiance, he could only wonder. What sinister truths lay hidden in the recesses of his own soul, waiting to burst forth and drown him whole. In one final, explosive push of desperate will, Jack exhaled the fear and filled his lungs with strength, shouting once more, "We're not afraid of the darkness. As the Shadow's confusion momentarily quaked, Jack's eyes zeroed in on Grant, catching the flicker of their combined hope. The darkness slowed, the figures unsure of their next move. But in that moment of hesitation, Jack felt himself drawn back both literally and figuratively into a mental spiral he wasn't ready to explore. What if the revelations that awaited them were far worse than anything they could imagine? As the shadows danced around them, Jack realized that even in their fight, they might have unleashed something far more insidious than fear itself, and just like that, the light flickered out. Jack felt the cold seep into his bones, wrapping around him like a vice. With one final shove, he propelled himself away from the darkness, breaking the grip of despair that threatened to pull him back into the abyss. The world spun around him, light and shadow intertwining, but he could hear Grant's voice, ever steady, cutting through the clamor. "Jack! Focus! Remember why we're here." The mantra of their shared purpose echoed in Jack's mind: to confront their fears, to unearth the truth buried in their pasts, and to reclaim the lives stolen from them. He squeezed his eyes shut, recalling the faces of his comrades, the bonds forged in the flames of battle, the brothers he fought beside and those who paid the ultimate price. Together. Jack shouted, and he reached out, grasping for Grant. Their hands locked together, the warmth of their shared resolve pushing back against the freezing fingers of darkness. With a surge of determination, they charged toward the flickering light, hearts pounding as shadows writhed and twisted in agony around them. The wall of darkness screeched, a sound both human and alien that clawed at their sanity. "You'll never escape." It bellowed, the tone reverberating against Jack's skull. "You underestimate what we're capable of." Grant shouted back, pulling Jack close as the light beckoned them forward. Every step they took toward that radiant glow felt heavier, like wading through treacle, but the warmth wrapped around them, invigorating as finally, they broke through the veil into the shimmering expanse. They emerged into a brilliant realm, washed in colors of light and hope, pooling around their feet like a fresh dawn that banished the lingering shadows. The oppressive whisper of despair fell silent as they landed on solid ground. Jack opened his eyes, blinking against the brightness, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Something shifted in the atmosphere, the air felt lighter, less burdened. "Did we really do it?" Grant asked, incredulity written on his face. "Did we escape?" Jack's heart, still racing, began to steady. "I think so," he breathed. But even as he spoke, memories swirled back a relentless current, gnawing at his resolve. The faces in the darkness, twisted mirrors of their fears, lingered in his mind. Had they truly faced it all? Or had they merely postponed the inevitable? Suddenly a figure emerged, a silhouette backlit by the brilliance that surrounded them. Drenched in shadows, it stepped forward. It looked like Jake, but the eyes glimmered with something hollow and wrong. Jack's breath hitched. "Jake!" He called out, dread pooling in his stomach. "What did you do?" Jake's voice echoed, a mixture of hurt and bitterness, intertwining with the lingering shadows that seemed to cling tightly to him. "You left me, I thought you'd come back." "No. We were coming." Jack protested, his heart twisting painfully at the sight of his friend. In that moment, he recalled how they had fought together, the laughter they had shared, and what it had meant to stand shoulder to shoulder against their fears. "You have to fight it, Jake," Grant implored, stepping forward, desperation bleeding through. "Please." The figure's expression morphed, flickering between familiarity and something grotesque. "You can't run from your past," it hissed through bared teeth. Jack stepped closer, grounding himself in courage. "We aren't running. We're facing it. Together." A moment stretched, taut like the scariest of moments before a punchline, before the shadows surrounding Jake pulled back, revealing his true form, catching breath, eyes wide with fear, as if the darkness had finally found its master. "Jack," Jake whispered. "I came back for you." "No," Jack exclaimed, squeezing Jake's shoulder, his own fear subsiding. "We're here now. We're in this together. Whatever this is, we'll break it." Around them, visions flickered like a film reel, spinning memories, laughter, camaraderie their past woven into a tapestry of bonds they had forged remembering who they were, all intricately intertwined with love and loss. In that moment of unity, the brilliance intensified, illuminating all corners of their minds. Jack felt a warmth spread through him, transforming pain into understanding, transforming shadows into resolve. Together, they would confront everything, the fears, the memories, the darkness twisting and clawing at their souls. Let us show them. Grant shouted into the void, his voice a wild spark. We will not let these shadows define us. Enough. Jack bellowed, raising his voice against the swirling shadows that still lingered. We own our stories now. You don't control us any longer. The shadows hissed, recoiling, as though they possessed life. The glowing realm pulsed with energy around them, a universe awakening to their defiance. Jack felt invincible, powerful, focused. With one final push, they raised their hands as if they held the essence of their shared truths and fears. The darkness roared, a twisted sound of vulnerability mixed with rage. It surged forward, desperate and chaotic. Together, they shouted, and in an explosion of strength, they released their fears into the world. Light flooded from their hands, cascading around them in radiant waves that swallowed the darkness. Jack's heart swelled as he felt the solid weight of friendship encircle him, lifting. The shadows imploded, absorbed by the brilliance, their cries melting into echoes of forgotten despair, and then there was silence, a calming, peaceful silence. The light refracted into a kaleidoscope of color, reshaping into a familiar town square, vibrant and alive under a sun that embraced them. Jake, Grant, and Jack stood together, arms entwined. The memories flowed through them, unbroken names forgotten now heard in whispers, triumphant. Did we really do it? Jake asked again, hope blooming born anew. Jack looked around, hoping there was an answer. If we did it together we can always break past the darkness. The shadows had not vanished completely, fear would always linger, twisted and wild, lurking just beneath the surface. But Jack knew, they had faced it, shoulder to shoulder, together. Their pasts no longer defined them, but rather gave them strength. As they walked into the light, a new resolve blossomed. There were countless stories that remained, waiting to be written anew, a promise of friendship and hope. Let us go home, Jack whispered, knowing they had reclaimed their lives and freed themselves from the haunting grips of the past. They stepped forward, into a future gleaming with endless possibilities. As they drifted into the daylight, a final explosion of color swept through the air, and the camera faded to black. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support our channel. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.